Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Why Wait. I'm Chris, and today we're going to talk about 10 tips that RVers need to know, should know, but many people out there still don't. So let's just go ahead and jump into it right away, break it down with number one. So the first one I want to talk about, and I get asked this question a lot, that's why I wanted to bring it up, is how do I remove my canister from my filter in my wet bay? Now, it doesn't really matter if you have a Class A, fifth wheel, travel trailer. Most units nowadays are going to have this 10-inch canister with a filter in it. That when it's time to change it, you need to remove it. And I get asked the question all the time, I cannot get my canister loose. I cannot break it loose. So the first thing you want to do is obviously make sure you have the tool to open it with. Obviously, you need to shut the water off. Shut the water off the city water connection, because this is the first place that the water goes before it goes into your coach or camper. So you're going to get sprayed to death if you don't shut the water off. Next, you may find it's still extremely hard to break loose and remove. Now, this isn't always common, but this was a big problem that other people have. It was a problem that we had on our Solitude, not so much on this one. Take your little device right here. And the first thing, pretty obvious, that you want to make sure you're doing is actually opening it the right way. Obviously lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, but it's kind of upside down, so you need to turn it to you. Now, if you're trying to break it loose and you just cannot get it to come loose, you're trying to pull it left and right, and you just can't quite figure out, what am I doing here? How come I cannot get this loose? What you need to do is sometimes relieve the pressure on the system, and the way to do that is by opening your cold point and your hot point drains. As soon as you open your cold point drains, that's going to drain out any water in the system that's in your lines. It's going to relieve the pressure on this, and it should crack open as easy as can be. Now, I always recommend having a towel handy to put down here because it's going to make a mess. And I don't even have a filter in here. We're not using a filter in here because we have the Blu Technology AR3 system, 3-stage filtration system, LED light, and all that stuff. So it's not even necessary for us to run a filter in here. But regardless of that, it's still going to fill up with water and be part of your water system. So I just want to kind of show you guys how opening the low point drains will relieve the pressure and make it easy to unscrew this. And another quick tip, when you go to empty this out, be careful when you go to dump this on the ground, because there is an O-ring in here that sometimes easily falls out. And if that O-ring is not in here when you go to put it back on, you're gonna have a constant leak. Okay, tip number two, no matter what kind of filtration system you're using, if you're even using a filtration system at all, what kind of filter you're using, you want to run the water through it before hooking it up to your RV when you put a new filter in, when you replace them. Again, whether it's a Blu Tech, 0.2 micron filter, or even those Camco inline water filters, especially those, you want to hook those up and run some water through them for a few minutes first to clean out all the charcoal and stuff like that. You're going to see if you hook one of those inline filters up and you turn the water on, it's going to blow some black out for a while, and you want to get those cleaned out. Same thing with these filters, these 10-inch filters that you would put in the wet bay like we just talked about. Go ahead and run some water through these first and get them nice and kind of cleaned out when you first hook them up before running it straight into your RV. And then you're going to get all that, usually the charcoal or any kind of nastiness inside these into the water system, which, it's not the biggest deal if you run some water inside first, but I like to go ahead and hook them up, run some water through them outside first, let it spill out everywhere, and then go ahead and hook them up to your water system. Okay, number three, tires, tire pressure. How do we set it? What do we set it at? How do we truly find what we're actually supposed to set it at? Now, we have an older video where we go over all things tire safety. Today, I just want to talk about the tire pressure and how to truly set it, what you need to be running it at. So we see this all too often on the Facebook forums and the groups of people asking, how do I set my tire PSI? What should it be at? Let's kind of break it down. And one of the mistakes that we see people say is, hey, on my tire, it said the max PSI to set it at cold inflation is say 100. So they set their tires at 100 PSI, they fill them up to 100, they get on the road, and as they're driving along, they're like, oh my gosh, my tires are at 125 PSI, should I pull over? I'm freaking out. And then I've even read people say, yeah, because of that, we set them at 80, that way when we get on the road, they actually get up to 100 where they're supposed to be. And that's totally, incorrect, as many of us do know. So the max PSI cold inflation is, again, it's a decent guideline to go by if you really don't know what to set them at. That's going to be somewhat safe, more than likely, depending on the load that you're carrying. But what you truly want to do to find the correct PSI is you need to get your coach or your fifth wheel or your camper or whatever, you need to get it weighed. And it's even better if you can actually get it weighed side to side instead of just each axle. And it's even better if you can use like those Weigh Smart programs or the Escape programs where you can actually get each individual tire weighed in all four corners to truly know how much weight is on each tire. After you know the weight, whether it's on each tire or the axles, you want to go to the tire manufacturer website. So if you had Michelin's, you would go look up Michelin tire load chart, and it's usually going to be on their website for almost all brands. If you do a little research, you can find this, and it's going to have a guide to where it's going to show you, depending on how much weight and how much load is on that axle or per each tire, what to actually set that cold inflation at. Now, a lot of times you're going to be actually pretty close with what the cold inflation max PSI is on a lot of fifth wheels. If it's 110 on the tire, a lot of times that's what you're going to need to set it at, especially if you're kind of loaded or overloaded. But you'd be surprised, especially on these Class A coaches, that again, mine may say like 130 on here, but I do not need to be running these at 130 because of the weight on mine. When I get them weighed, how much cargo capacity I've actually have on this axle back here, I only need to run these at like 100. So it's a common question, and it's usually commonly kind of like a lot of misinformation out there. So if you have any issues with it, again, look up your tires, go to the website, find their chart, get your RV weighed with the weight in it, like on a travel day. And if you can, get it weighed, again, side to side or even corner to corner to really find the true load that is sitting on each tire, so you can actually find the true PSI that you need to set. Because believe it or not, the PSI on the back side of my tires may be different than the PSI set on this side of the back tires, just because of how much weight I may have loaded on that other side compared to this side. And another good tip would be to try and distribute that weight evenly across the four tires the best you can. But that's what you guys should really be doing to find your true PSI and what you should be running them at. And again, cold inflation, you don't want to inflate these or check these after you've been running all day. Kind of wake up in the morning when the tires are cold, they've been sitting, the sun's not beating on them yet, get a reading, find out what they are, and then air them up that morning before you hit the road. Okay guys, next up, water pressure regulators. One of the questions we get all the time is, where do I put my water pressure regulator in my water system? In the front, at the end, in the middle? So this is what's usually recommended. And here's a quick little tip before I get into that. When I do get to a new campsite, the first thing I even do is I come over here and turn the water spigot on. Number one, just to make sure the water is working on this site, because I don't want to back in, get totally set up, go to connect my water and find out the water's no good. So just give the spigot a quick turn, make sure you got water. Next, what I want to do is come over here and I want to make sure that the site has adequate water pressure. Because sometimes you get on a site that water's working, but the water pressure is just really bad. So that's where you can take your water pressure regulator, hook it up real quick, turn it on, and see what the PSI is to make sure that it's okay. Now, where do you usually hook these up in your system, especially with the Blu technology system? If you're running water filters and water systems, where do you want to put this? Right here. This is where it's recommended to go before you get into all those filtration systems and water softeners. You want to find your true PSI and kind of set it right here at the water spigot, not so much afterwards. Now, when I get to a site, I use the Blu technology shark bite right here. It's basically just an easy way to hook anything up here without having to get wrenches. It's a quarter turn. You can see you just simply push it on and you just turn, and that's it. You're hooked up. Don't need any wrenches or anything else. And from there, you actually have the Blu technology basically like hydraulic, awesome fitting quick connects that I can just pop that on there. And now I'm set to go. I'm gonna hook my hose up right here. And then after that, I'm gonna have my filtration system, my water softener, and everything else. And that brings me to the next question we get is, what should the PSI at the water spigot be? So a lot of manufacturers tell you 40 PSI, 45 PSI. I'm a big believer in setting it around 60, 65. been full-time in almost 7 years, and I always set it almost as high as I can get, around 60, 65 PSI. That's the same thing that Blu Technology recommends, especially if you're running a water softener and a water filtration system, which, you know, can bring the PSI down just a bit, but not too much. I like my water pressure. The PEX piping inside these RVs is actually rated for a lot more than like the 40 PSI, which you may see someone recommending, which is just really low. Now this campground right here, when you turn this on, the PSI is only at 40 PSI. That's the most they have. So in those situations, what I like to do is actually just fill up my freshwater tank, and I usually run off my water pump, which has a little bit more pressure than that. And that's a good tip. And if you're always running off the water pump, it's kind of nice too, because you always know if you have a water leak, because if the water pump starts running by itself or it's coming on for no reason when you're not calling for any water, that means you have a leak in your system somewhere, and it kind of just gives you a heads up doing that. Now, the only time I like to move my water pressure regulator to somewhere else besides right here at the water spigot is during the winter time. These need to come inside. That's when I'll move it and hook it up like right before the water goes inside, you know, my camper, and somewhere in the wet bay where it's going to be protected from freezing. Now, this next tip is the most basic and played out tip yet, and I hope you all know this. Don't leave the awning out when you leave the RV. I know it seems so basic, and why am I telling you guys? I hope you know this one. If you've been RVing for like a month, you should know this, but we still see it all the time in campgrounds. We still see it all the time on Facebook, the pictures of storms, rain, wind. I was gone for 5 minutes. I came back, my awning was ripped up, my awning fell apart. We practice that if we are going anywhere, awning goes in. We go to bed at night, the awning goes in. Well, why do you need to keep it out at night? I don't understand why people leave them out at night. It just makes no sense. Now, we may be a little more like crazy about it than most people, but it's really not that big of a deal nowadays. Just to press a button, it goes right in. Press a button, when I get back, it comes right back out. I'd rather do that than have to deal with replacing one of these, the cost, the insurance, putting one back on, because it's a pain in the butt. We actually lost an awning one time going down the road. Wasn't our fault. The awning just decided to pop out on its own and totally ripped off the camper, pulled the bolts off the arms and the wall, and flipped up on top of the camper. It was a complete nightmare. It took like 5 guys to like reinstall one of those, and it was quite an ordeal. So don't leave it to chance. Again, it's a pretty easy thing to do. It's like the #1 RVer rule if you're out there. Put the awning in. And a good bonus tip, when you're putting that awning in, get yourself a good dry lube. I like to use Boschel T9. And lube up all the moving parts to keep everything working in good order. Now, that's gonna bring us to our next tip, and that is one that I did a whole video on, and that is to wash your moving parts or wash anything before you lube it up, before you use a dry lube. Because what do we always hear? Dry lube, dry lube, dry lube, dry lube with PTFE. Okay, that's great. Using dry lubes, right? Well, here's the deal. The whole reason about using a dry lube is to protect those parts from dust and dirt that other lubes attract. So what is the point if you're gonna take that dry lube and just go up to your jacks, your slide outs, your awnings, and just spray it down with the dry lube if it's completely dirty and it already has dust, dirt, and mud on it? All you're doing is locking in all that stuff that you're trying to keep off with the dry lube. The whole point of the dry lube is to keep the moving parts from attracting the dust and dirt. But I see it all the time where people are just out there spraying things down, lubing them up, and they're absolutely disgusting looking, and now you're just trapping all that dust and dirt into those moving parts. Listen, I know it's a pain in the butt to wash things first or to clean them up first. You don't have to get a bucket of soap and water out and scrub everything down. Get a wet rag, wipe it down, some kind of cleaner, clean things up. After you have it cleaned up, then go ahead and take your dry lube and go ahead and coat those jack legs. Go ahead and coat your, rack and pinion arms on the slide outs, your awnings, any other moving parts on your hitches and things like that. But you want to clean them first, again, because that's why everyone's preaching this whole, dry lube thing. That's the point. Tip number 8, reduce the shakiness in the RV. Does your RV, fifth wheel, travel trailer, even these coaches, is it wobbling too much? Is it too shaky? Well, one of the big reasons is you have too much jack extended, too much leg extended. The longer the leg, the longer the jack, the more play that there's going to be in these RVs. So what we like to do, and especially when we have the fifth wheel, is reduce the leg, reduce the jacks as little as we can. That's where RV SNAPPADS came in for us. we use the RV snap pads, but not only do we use the RV snap pad feet, which I'm sure you guys have seen, and that's great because that gives you a water footprint, gives you a rubber footprint, more stable, especially in grass and gravel from sinking. But we've been using these snap pad stacker blocks as well on our jacks to reduce the leg of how far those jacks have to come down. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of blocking you're using, whether you're using wood, plastic stackers, RV snap pads. We even used to use the Anderson red buckets, the Anderson jack blocks. And we paired those up with the RV snap pad base pads. And the base pad is a product that works with the Anderson buckets, goes underneath them, and it helps those Anderson buckets from cracking, which they've been known to do over time. A lot of times using the red Anderson bucket on gravel like this, the gravel kind of gets under there, it would cause it to crack. Now those have lifetime warranties. You can always get your red Anderson buckets replaced, but the RV base pad was a nice product to work with those. So the whole idea is as long as you're using something to try to reduce the length of your legs as much as you can, that's really going to help with stabilizing the campers. And if you guys are interested in any kind of RV snap pad product, as always, we do have a code down below for that, can save you 10% off. So make sure you check that out. Now let's go ahead and go inside and talk about the last two. Okay, tip number 9. This is an important one. Take your time. Just take your time with everything. We're living the RV life, right? We're enjoying this. We're slowing down the pace of life. There's no rush. And this is actually a big tip because I still see it among so many people where they are just trying to go so fast, breaking down, setting up, getting on the road, driving fast, everything. So just remember, there's no real rush, and taking those few extra minutes to do your walk around, you know, go over things, double check stuff, because if you're going fast, you're going to forget something, you're going to mess something up, and then slow down going down the road. Just guys, just again, speed limit. A lot of times these tires aren't even rated to be going as fast as some of these people I see flying down the road pulling these campers. You're going to get there. There's no rush. You want to stay safe. You want to keep everyone around you safe. So it's just a big one. Just slow everything down. Even sometimes I'll get in a rush. I want to get a good ETA. I want to get going. I want to get on the road. I'm kind of like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I got to tell myself to just, you know, slow down. Take my time. Let's do this right. Let's make sure everything's safe. You don't want to break anything. You don't want to skip a step. Which brings us to the very last one. That is number 10. I talked about skipping a step. Use a checklist. Use a hitching and unhitching checklist for your travel days. This is a big tip. 7 years of doing this and we're still using the checklist. Even if I'm doing everything and I'm not checking it off as I go, when I sit back down in this seat, before I take off, I pull open my phone, I pull open my checklist, and then I'll just go ahead and check everything off if I didn't do it as I was doing it. Just double check, okay, got it all done, let's hit the road. Because as soon as I don't, as soon as I think I know what's going on and we got it, yep, we'll be 10 minutes down the road and I'll look over at Megan and be like, hey, did we do that? Did we forget to do that? And it's just, you don't want to forget a major step that could create a big accident that's going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to crush something, you're going to forget about something, you're going to break something, you know, just, it could be the smallest thing, but we created a little checklist for everything where we talk about checklist of whether it's putting a rug away, you know, locking this door, closing the pantries, all the way down to, again, jacks, slide outs, walkarounds, and things like that. Highly recommend using a checklist. Stick to that checklist. Don't ever get too cocky. You've never done it long enough. In fact, as we get older, our minds start to go and we're going to forget things even more. So number 10, use that checklist. Guys, if there's anything I forgot, comment down below on just some tips that you see people, RVers out there that they should know but just always seem to forget. Comment down below so I can hear from you. Always appreciate you guys watching. Catch you next week.